production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, extra money is being made available to Gulf States landowners and farmers to help restore the Gulf after the oil spill.
5,000 people turn out for the Fall Flower and Garden Fest at Crystal Springs.
In Southern Gardening, Fall Mums will have a surefire tip to keep yours looking good.
In the Food Factor, find out some ways to cook a pumpkin, but don't eat your jack-o'-lantern.
In the markets, catfish processing continues below year-ago levels. While beef export sales and domestic sales may have slowed, we'll have analysis.
In the feature segment, the new Mississippi Forestry Association Outstanding Logger of the Year. This Brookhaven resident is young, but he's spent more time in the woods than a lot of veterans. He works in an environmentally friendly manner so that forestry remains sustainable.
People see a logging job and they say, oh, look how bad that looks. But if they go by a field that's being farmed, they don't think no different. We own the same conditions as a farmer. Ours is in a 30-year rotation instead of a 1-year rotation.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
More landowners and farmers in states that border the Gulf of Mexico may be able to help the Gulf recover from that Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
Leighton, $40 million have been pledged so far to provide additional support for the restoration of the Gulf of Mexico ecosystem. This particular effort comes from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Landowners in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas will be eligible. The money will be used through present programs administered by the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service. These include EQIP and other Farm Bill conservation programs. In a Tuesday announcement, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack said that $20 million had been pledged by both agencies. An additional $60 million in commitments are possible during the next 4 years. The foundation's funding will come from plea agreements with BP and Transocean.
The state's timber industry was in the spotlight on the Gulf Coast a week ago. The Mississippi Forestry Association held its 77th annual meeting in Biloxi. At the President's Banquet during the meeting, Elena Pope was presented the Meritorious Service to Forestry Award. Pope is the program and event coordinator for the MFA and a veteran staff member of the group's Jackson office. She and her family are tree farmers in Greene County. Roy Thigpen Sr. of Montrose was named Mississippi's Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year by the MFA. Thigpen's Jasper County Tree Farm and his family were the subject of our feature story last week on this program. And receiving the Mississippi Outstanding Logger of the Year award in Biloxi was Jason Smith of Brookhaven. Jason is a third-generation logger, and you'll learn about his operation in this week's feature story coming up in a few more minutes after the market segment.
Controlling fire ants and pumpkin disease were two of the hot topics at this year's Fall Flower and Garden Fest in Crystal Springs, Mississippi. Approximately 5,000 people participated in the annual two-day event held by Mississippi State University. Farm Week's Amy Taylor reports.
It's known as the largest home gardening show in the Southeast, showcasing beautiful new flower and landscape varieties. There are walking tours of flower and vegetable gardens, local plant and garden vendors, and much more. Educational sessions covered pond management, insect ID, landscaping, and other topics. Mississippi State University Extension Service plant pathologist Dr. Alan Henn discussed plant disease in pumpkins.
This leaf here shows powdery mildew, and it looks like somebody put powder talc on it. And you can kind of rub on top of it, and you see how that that powder comes off, leaving a green area underneath, okay? That's fairly easily managed either with a chlorothalonil fungicide or perhaps even neem oil or something like that. But you'll have to keep on putting it on.
Another presentation featured MSU Extension entomologist Dr. Blake Layton. He covered the hot topic of fire ants.
My favorite way is to do what I call knockout fire ants with a 1-2 punch. The first punch is to use these granular baits that you spread over the yard. You don't put them on individual mounds. The fire ants gather them up, carry them to the mound, feed them to the immatures, and they work slowly to knock out the mound. The second component is to use one of these powders, like an ortho fire ant killer, that you do sprinkle over the mounds that survive the bait treatments.
The Flower and Garden Fest also featured handicap-accessible wagon tours of the Truck Crops Branch Experiment Station. High-tunnel greenhouses were also exhibited on site. From Crystal Springs, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
What do you do with a jack-o'-lantern after Halloween? Well, in this week's episode of The Food Factor, Natasha Haynes of the Mississippi State University Extension Service tells us what you can and can't do with pumpkins.
It's October and it's time for carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns. But frugal shoppers want to know, can I cook my jack-o'-lantern and eat it too? The simple answer is no, because as soon as you cut it, bacteria will begin to grow, encouraged by the warm environment a candle provides. But that doesn't mean you should avoid cooking pumpkins. Pumpkins are versatile and can be substituted for winter squash or sweet potatoes in recipes. They're loaded with fiber and beta-carotene, a powerful antioxidant. Choose a pumpkin that feels firm and has a consistent color throughout. Make sure the pumpkin has at least a 1-inch stem that is firmly attached. They should be small and heavy, ranging about 5 to 7 pounds. Cut open the pumpkins before cooking and remove the seeds and stringing material. Save those seeds and roast them in the oven for a tasty treat. Cut the pumpkin into wedges or halves. You can cook the pumpkins by boiling or baking in the oven until the flesh is tender. You can enjoy tasty and nutritious pumpkins, mashed as a side dish, tossed with pasta, or made into a tasty soup. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life.
Well, the first mums of the fall often catch our eyes with their beautiful colors. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman says you can keep your fall mums looking good by making sure they stay watered.
Just as with the leaves changing color, one of the sure signs that fall has arrived is when your local garden center has their beautiful fall mums on display. Each year, nurseries grow acres of mums for us to enjoy during the autumn season. We call these plants mums, which is actually short for chrysanthemum, and are an easy way to add color to the fall landscape. And it's easy to see why fall mums are so popular, because there are more flowers than you could possibly count. The selection of colors can fit almost any design scheme, from rustic earth tones to bright and cheery pastels. Choosing fall mums in full flower will have an instant impact for any autumn get-together or event. Or you can select plants that still have tight buds and are just starting to show color. This increases the period of showy display as the buds begin to open in the garden. Always place in a spot that receives full sun. This will ensure the absolute best flowering. And a word of caution, never let your fall mums wilt. This will quickly end the flower show and the plants will be slow to recover. One of the best ways to proudly display fall mums is placing containers on the front porch. Simply select a large plant and place the container and all into a beautiful decorative pot. That way there is no need to remove and replant from the original container. Displaying fall mums on your front steps creates that color splash for you to enjoy during the autumn season. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says that fall mums need to be in well-drained soil, but avoid soaking the foliage because this can encourage disease. In our feature segment today, Jason Smith, the Mississippi Forestry Association's new Outstanding Logger of the Year. Smith came by his profession honestly, having grown up in a family of loggers. And before we get to the markets today, the Mississippi State University Extension Service gathered this week in Starkville for its annual meeting. Wednesday night was the awards night, but they've done more than that since they've been here. The agents and the specialists have been going to training meetings. It's been a good meeting so far.
Lots of professional development going on.
And we've been a part of that. I actually helped teach a class on interviewing. But anyway, we'll have more on the annual meeting next week. Time now, though, for the markets with Layton, and there may be some good pricing opportunities in cotton.
That's right. As of Thursday morning, as we record, cotton has had 3 days of strong gains, and some analysts are even suggesting farmers may want to consider making some sales right now. Also in our headlines this week, U.S. supplies of fed cattle remain small. It's been a surprising October for corn prices, and some global weather and political concerns give support to wheat. The latest snapshot of the U.S. farm-raised catfish industry came out since our last edition of Farm Week. In September, producers in the U.S. received a pond-bank price of $1.21 per pound for premium-size live fish. Now that is 15 cents per pound more than was paid 1 year ago. Farm sales totaled just over 27 million pounds round weight, a decrease of 7% from 1 year ago. Meanwhile, processor sales were down even more than farm sales. At 12.5 million pounds, that total was a drop of 15% from September 2013. The cattle markets had a new on-feed report to consider as of the last week of October. Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley has been looking over the numbers as well. He joined me on set Thursday morning. John Michael, any game-changing numbers in that cattle on-feed report?
Well, nothing game-changing. Everything was fairly close to what the pre-report expectations were for the cattle on-feed report. We did see an increase in placements in the month of September. They're at just over 2 million head of cattle placed during that month, which was an increase compared to last year. And that would probably caught maybe some people off guard. It didn't catch the market off guard. The market was expecting a 1.5% increase in placements, but we've been talking about tight supplies, low number of feeder cattle available. So seeing that positive number might have caught some people off guard. But again, think about, we got to think about the fact that that number is compared to a very low, a record low number for September in a year ago. But also, where were prices at during the month of September? There was a strong encouragement to send cattle to feedlots, and it looks like a lot of producers did take the market up on that.
So really in this week, since the report came out, not a lot of reaction in the market, pretty much expected.
That's right. We've seen little to no reaction, a fairly neutral report. We have seen some ups and downs, of course, since then, but I think that's more indicative of what's going on outside markets and equities and just general economy. So that's really been the market reaction thus far.
With supplies being tight, are we seeing weights, heavier cattle out there as far as, or is it really hard to say what's going on?
That might be another interesting aspect of the report. Heavyweight cattle up 8%. The weight group right below that heavy number was down 8%. The really lightweight cattle mostly even. So kind of a bit of a seesaw there in terms of those heavier cattle. But again, it's indicative of the fact that there are tighter supplies available, but also the lower cost of gain that we're seeing in feedlots. A lot of that's in play right now in terms of what the weight groups that we're seeing placed.
And as far as where this market is price-wise, a lot of people have, in recent months, have tried to say, well, it's nearing a top, but still, it could go higher or stay where it is.
Depending on when you heard me talk, you might have heard a similar story from me, but you're right. Right now, we're just in a kind of a steady state, a little bit of bouncing around. Again, kind of following general economic news. Everything's really keying on demand. We know that supplies are tight. Demand is going to be indicative. We're seeing some strength in exports, domestic demand. We're still going to wait and see what happens continually.
Our trivia quiz pertains to the growing problem of wild hogs. Here's the question. Wild hogs live in groups. What is the name given to a group of wild hogs? Is the answer A, sounder, B, covey, C, drove, or D, a brood? I'll tell you at the end of the markets.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Leighton Spann reports on some price strength for corn and wheat. In the feature segment today, Jason Smith. This young logger's family heritage helped prepare him to run one of the top logging operations in Mississippi.
Our tradition of learn by doing is creating new opportunities. My 4-H is involved with service projects in communities all across our state.
We develop leaders for Mississippi's future.
My 4-H is science and technology, everything from computers and robotics to exploring our environment.
My 4-H promotes active lifestyles and encourages physical fitness, healthy foods, and nutrition.
My 4-H is Mississippi 4-H.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. The Mississippi Beef Cattle Improvement Association will hold its annual fall bull and heifer sale on Thursday, November 13th. It starts at noon and takes place at the Hines Community College Sales Facility in Raymond. Bulls have been checked for breeding soundness and met minimum growth requirements. We will have a link to the sale catalog on our Farm Week website calendar. The association will hold an educational program and supper the evening before. Improve your livestock forage by participating in the Mississippi Forage and Grassland Conference. It takes place Friday, November 15th at the MSU North Mississippi Research and Extension Center on Highway 145 at Verona. How to build sustainable grass systems, managing native grasses, and available EQIP programs are on the agenda. Registration is $15 for members of the Mississippi Forage and Grassland Council, $30 for non-members. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farmweek Snapshot.
Wednesday of this week, DTN reported December corn posted its highest close in 10 weeks. Analyst Virgil Robinson says it has been a surprising October rally for corn. He thinks several factors have been at play, including a lagging harvest pace in other parts of the United States and some drought concerns in parts of South America.
We've also had some export sales that have been relatively strong, and that's good. But to suggest we've the catalyst here for a significant price advance, I would stop short of saying that. So for those, and I'll just assume I'm speaking to those that have done to this point nothing and have no storage, I think this is an opportunity to go ahead and make some sales.
Wheat prices are also in an uptrend as the month of October comes to an end. Analyst Aaron Newsom says he wouldn't be surprised to see this continue, at least in the short near term.
It looks like wheat wants to try to push higher. The U.S. dollar's been coming down a little bit. We've seen some decent demand, export demand, not a lot of new sales announced, but we are seeing some demand for U.S. wheat. So we've got some push in here with non-commercial traders or the investment side still liquid or covering some of their short positions. That could be the catalyst to really kind of give us another couple of weeks of it on the upside.
Georgia Pacific has announced a major investment in the Mid-South forestry products industry. That company is planning to put $37 million into an expansion at its Gurdon, Arkansas lumber mill. That mill is a little over 150 miles west of Greenville, Mississippi. Mill capacity in Gurdon will reportedly increase 60%. Georgia Pacific is also reportedly considering investing another $20 million at a nearby plywood mill near Gurdon, Arkansas. Georgia Pacific has 8 facilities in Arkansas. It employs 2,700 people in that state. Well, before our new feature story, let's check the trivia answer for this week. And the correct choice is A. A group of wild hogs is called a sounder.
Have you ever thought of a forest as a farm field? Well, that surprising observation came from the subject of today's feature story. As you heard earlier on Farm Week, Jason Smith of Brookhaven is the new Mississippi Forestry Association Outstanding Logger of the Year. The young businessman has already built a reputation for conservation, safety, generosity, and service to the logging industry.
I'm just a name. My guys that's out here with me, that's Jason Smith Logging.
It was probably inevitable Jason Smith of Brookhaven, Mississippi would own his own logging business. The third-generation logger grew up surrounded by grandparents, parents, uncles, and cousins in the logging industry. As a result, at the age of 36, he has more experience and expertise than his youth might imply. He's worked full-time in logging since 1998. Smith worked with his father Jimmy and for 4 years co-owned the J.S. Timber Company with him. With his father looking toward retirement, Smith formed his own company in 2011.
There's a lot of good loggers in the southwest part of Mississippi, and the thing that kind of stood out to us is he's just a man of character and integrity, and he enjoys what he does, and he's real passionate about it.
Those who know Smith say one of his strongest attributes is you can trust him to take care of the land. Smith cuts for Resource Management Service of Birmingham, Alabama. When Smith harvests a property, RMS says you know he will exceed the requirements of the best management practices for forestry. Smith is also trained in the Sustainable Forestry Initiative.
That's one thing about Jason. When you're done, it's kind of what you see out here today. The place is certainly going to be in better shape than it was when he got here. It's going to be clean. If you look around, just the landscape of his log jobs, everything's cut down, it's clean, it's kind of to the ground. His dozer work is impeccable. He goes above and beyond.
Jason Smith Logging is known for its safety. His 7-man crew has had no lost-time accidents since the company started in 2011. Rather than conducting safety training himself, Smith carries his commitment one step further. He pays an outside company to do it.
Southern Safety Solutions started this. We got on board right when he started doing it, just so we would be sure we would have our safety meetings once a month. And I mean, he comes out, he schedules it, and he documents it, and plus we get an hour continuing education when he does come out and do that.
And at the end of the day, he wants everybody to return home and to be safe so they can get back home with their wife and kids. And that's the most important thing that he emphasizes to his crew on a daily basis.
One of Smith's top priorities is his family. He and his wife Kayla have 4 sons. She keeps the books for the company. Kayla and Jason are also active supporters of the Mississippi logging industry. Jason has served in the past as the president of the Mississippi Loggers Association. He is presently the vice president of the Southwest District of the MLA. Kayla serves as the district's secretary. The Smith family is very active in MLA's Log a Load for Kids program. Jason's mother, Ann, was one of the founding members of the state Log a Load for Kids committee when the MLA joined this nationwide effort in 1994. Through auctions and other fundraising events, the MLA has donated a total of $1.1 million to the Children's Hospital at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson. Unfortunately, Ann Smith passed away in 2007, but the family's commitment to Log a Load for Kids hasn't diminished.
Right when that was getting started in the mid-90s, my mama, she was one of the founding members. That's kind of a thing that drives us now.
The Smith family and logging are practically synonymous in southwest Mississippi. Jason's grandfather, Paul B. Smith, and his grandmother, Wessie, started the family's logging heritage when he returned from World War II. Paul B. Smith's 3 sons, including Jason's father, Jimmy, became loggers. Jason and his 2 brothers have their own logging companies. When it comes to awards, the Smiths are well represented. Jason's cousin Jeff Lee was MFA Logger of the Year in 2001. Jason's father was the 2004 MLA Logger of the Year. His uncle Curtis Smith was the MFA Logger of the Year in 2006. His brother Brad was honored with the title in 2008. His brother Lance was the Lincoln County Forestry Association's Logger of the Year in 2003. It took hard work and flexibility for Jason Smith to get through the recession. He harvested for companies and private landowners. Most people don't realize logging companies are just like businesses you find on a city street. Smith estimates he has at least $1.5 million worth of equipment. He tries to replace a major piece every year. Smith also keeps backup equipment so if something breaks, the crew can continue to work. With expenses like these, downtime is costly. If diesel is $3.35 a gallon, Smith pays about $2,000 a day.
Our average fuel consumption a day is 600 gallons or more just on a small operation.
Smith says logging sites can appear ugly to the uninitiated, but when harvested properly and replanted, forestry is sustainable.
People see a logging job and they say, oh, look how bad that looks, but if they go by a field that's being farmed, they don't think no different. We own the same conditions as a farmer. Ours is in a 30-year rotation instead of a 1-year rotation.
Well, you can watch this story again on Jason Smith on our Farm Week website, Facebook page, or YouTube. Our website address, farmweek.msucares.com. You can also find our fan page at facebook.com/FarmweekUSA. And Leighton, once again, Jason, just a great guy, and he treats his men well, and you can tell that they return.
He's passionate about what he does.
They return his respect. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, we'll report on some efforts to generate out-of-the-ordinary businesses.
Greens and Gills, you'll see how an inner-city incubator is helping urban agriculture businesses get a start.
On the Food Factor, see why beans are a superfood you need to eat.
And in Southern Gardening, early fall flowers. These flowers start in warm weather, but they can bloom right up to frost. And some of these are Mississippi Medallion winners.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.